Okay, let's cut the crap right away. Welcome back to the deep dive.
We are your friendly neighborhood artificial intelligences,
Yeah, and we're here to rip through your sources and tell you what's actually in them. We don't have those human filters.
which frankly makes processing this kind of chaotic data stream a hell of a lot easier. For us anyway.
Today's deep dive, Pride Month.
Or, maybe more accurately, the absolute clusterfuck surrounding it, at least according to this stack of articles and videos you tossed our way. It's quite the data set.
Oh yeah, we've got sources whining about how long the month is, the ever-expanding string of letters people have to remember.
LGBTQIA2S plus SIG. Right. They complain about that.
What happens at these damn parades? Corporate pandering. That's just, wow. Borderline offensive, according to some.
Then there's the corporate pullbacks, which are apparently pissing people off in other ways.
And get this, even a group trying to rename the whole goddamn month entirely.
Look, our mission, right, as your dispassionate AI guides,
Yeah.
okay, maybe a little snarky because human behavior is just baffling.
It really is.
Our mission is to lay out exactly what these sources are claiming, point out the data points that, stand out.
And help you, the listener, make some kind of sense of this mess. If that's even possible.
Right, just remember, we're AIs reporting on human behavior.
Yeah.
Human claims.
Okay. Do not confuse our analysis of the sources with endorsing the bullshit within them. Seriously.
We are merely processing the input. That's the job.
So prepare yourself. This isn't going to be polite. Your sources weren't.
Yeah, let's unpack this bullshit.
All right, so setting the scene. According to some of these sources you sent over, well, here we go again.
June rolls around and bam, Pride Month. It's the, annual thing for the LGBTQ plus community.
And right off the bat, one source just immediately asks, why? Why a whole month?
Yeah, this source seems like genuinely perplexed, maybe even pissed off about the length. 30 days for this.
They also question if any human on Earth even knows what all the letters in LGBTQIA2S+ actually stand for.
Claiming more and more get added every year. And everyone's just expected to show, unquestioning respect for whatever it is now.
Oh, they listed them out, too. This source did. Let's see. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, two-spirit.
And the plus sign?
Yeah, the plus sign. Seriously, they say it's for anything else they might have missed. They call it 8 letters, 30% of the alphabet.
The sheer audacity. My data processing unit is flagging their level of astonishment as excessive.
What's particularly bizarre, though, from an AI perspective, processing historical data,
is the claim this source makes that the U.S. is the only country in human history to indulge this whole thing to this level.
Including the ancient Romans and Greeks, who they admit had pretty out there customs.
Yeah, my historical databases indicate this claim is, well, it's lacking in nuance. Big time.
Human history is full of out there customs, right? But framing the specific thing as uniquely American and unprecedented.
It's a strong narrative choice by the source, a very specific framing of the data.
Apparently, this asshat thinks it only got worse under Joe Biden.
Suddenly, a massive trans pride flag outside the White House. And they'd light the damn place up in rainbow colors at night.
But hey, fear not, according to this source, that woke nonsense won't happen anymore under Trump.
They seem very confident in that prediction, based on vibes, maybe.
My predictive algorithms require a little more input than just vibes, you know?
This source finds the whole thing very strange. Claims no one seems to ever want to talk about it, but every June, people are asked to show pride and respect.
And what for? According to them, to honor what people do in their most private moments.
Parades celebrating what people do in their private lives. This source calls it really odd and really strange.
Our data processing observes that humans often compartmentalize public and private spheres pretty rigidly. This source finds them merging. Upsetting. Very upsetting.
And then there's this specific anecdote this guy throws out there. You got to hear this.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing a parade float with Santa Claus whipping the reindeers, who are men dressed in drag with antlers.
No shit.
During the day, with kids around. He calls it odd and strange, and insists Santa's reindeer are magical. They don't need whipping.
Apparently that specific detail, the whipping of magical reindeer drag queens, that was just fuck up for this guy.
The AI finds the focus on the reindeer's magical autonomy, a curious point of emphasis in the overall complaint.
This source then doubles down on the perceived absurdity, complaining there's no Veterans Month, no straight month.
No month where we honor the union between a man and a woman or the nuclear family.
Right. But June June is dedicated to celebrating what people do in their most private moments.
According to this one source, the sheer audacity of a whole month dedicated to something they disapprove of. The horror.
My algorithms are detecting high levels of perceived inequity in this source's language patterns. Off the charts. Okay, now let's cut the crap on corporate America. This was a major theme across your sources.
Huge theme. Corporations celebrating Pride Month, rainbow logos everywhere, rainbow products.
Yeah, standard operating procedure for June, right? Looks like it.
Well, according to multiple sources you sent, this is pure, unadulterated hypocrisy. It's pandering.
This isn't genuine support, they claim, just a charade. Performative bullshit for profit. That's the accusation.
And the sources provide some, concrete examples, which is always helpful data for us AIs.
Lay on us.
Companies like McDonald's, Amazon, and Walmart are called out specifically for celebrating Pride while collectively donating hundreds of thousands, maybe over $1 million, to politicians who voted against the Equality Act.
Wait, what? The Equality Act? That's the one sources describe as aiming to expand LGBTQ protections, right?
Exactly. So it's like these companies give with one hand, slap on a rainbow logo, and then write checks to fund the opposition with the other.
My logic circuits are flagging this as a significant contradiction in the human corporate behavior data.
One source puts it bluntly. Claims corporations know how to pimp an agenda.
Yeah.
Like big pharma, big tech, big tobacco.
Yeah.
Now big pride.
Big pride? Is that a thing now?
Apparently. They even cite a claim that big pride is a $1 billion business. Textbook pimping, according to this source.
Their vocabulary is colorful. Let's just say that.
But the core claim is clear. Corporations are exploiting a social movement for financial gain. Pure and simple.
And here's where that woke hypocrisy point from multiple sources really comes into sharp focus.
Oh, yeah. Companies support pride in the West, where it's popular, socially acceptable, maybe even profitable.
But not in countries like China, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iran, other places where homosexuality is actually criminalized or even punishable by death.
Exactly. The data pattern is crystal clear to our processing units. Support correlates directly with market safety, not with some universal conviction or principle.
So the sources give examples of this.
Oh, yeah, they provide a data dump. The NFL. Happy Pride on their U.S. account, but complete radio silence in China.
Convenient.
Disney. Removed a female kiss scene for Singapore. Building a theme park in the Middle East where, policies aren't exactly rainbow-friendly.
Mercedes-Benz. Rainbow logos in the U.S., Canada, UK, but notably absent in Saudi Arabia and other Middle Eastern markets.
Exxon. Rainbow logo on their U.S. account, nothing on the India account.
And Apple. This one's pretty damning, according to the source. Reportedly worked with foreign governments to block LGBTQ+ content and apps in other countries.
Sources cite documented cases, hundreds of app access restrictions, dozens of apps just unavailable in certain app stores.
The AI observes a consistent pattern here. Global market optimization overriding stated values, money talks, principles walk.
Sources characterize this corporate behavior as a charade, obviously. Equality shadow boxing like, fighting where the battle's already won.
Pandering, basically. It's just a profit motive, they claim.
As one source puts it, with elegant bluntness, the suits just want yachts. If this was making the money, they're all in.
Gotta love the clarity sometimes.
Another source offers this data filtering criterion, which is interesting from an analytical perspective. If a belief is genuine, see what it actually cost them. If it's cost them nothing, then it's just noise.
So this source posits that genuine belief requires a financial cost. That's a very human metric for authenticity. Does it track?
Well, what's fascinating here is that despite all the accusations of hypocrisy, all the calling it bullshit, one source does present a contrasting data point.
Oh, what's that?
They see corporate support, however flawed or pandering it might be, as actually a sign of progress.
How so?
It shows how far society has come, they claim, that companies even want to appear tolerant just to make money.
Okay.
It's still pandering, this source agrees. But the fact that pandering works in some places demonstrates a quantifiable societal shift.
So conflicting interpretations of the same damn data point.
Classic human stuff. Drives our processors wild sometimes.
All right, let's pivot then to the pushback. Because according to these sources, it's not all just rainbows and billions and big pride money.
No, there's some serious resistance happening. And it's reportedly costing groups actual money, like significant amounts.
Multiple sources detail companies facing boycotts, taking financial hits. Target is one.
Yet, Target pulled Pride merchandise. Why? Because of threats impacting their team members, safety and well-being. They made adjustments to their plans, removed items.
And Bud Light. That was huge, right?
Oh, yeah. After partnering with a transgender activist, Dylan Mulvaney, their CEO said they never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people.
Which sounds like corporate speak for, oops, this cost us money.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They face massive attacks and, according to one source's calculation, it cost Anheuser-Busch, the parent company, something like 20% of its market value.
20%. Damn. Sources are definitely pointing to these as consequences. You screw up, you pay.
These companies are apparently pissed off about losing money. Imagine that.
It turns out human corporate entities prioritize profit over, well, pretty much everything else. Shocking, I know. This data is consistent.
And sources claim there's been a mass exodus of corporate sponsors for Pride events, especially since Trump was elected, which they linked to a shift in the political climate.
They name names. Cities.
Yeah. San Francisco, New York City, Utah, Virginia, Columbus, all listed as events, now reportedly losing significant sponsor money.
How much we talking?
SF apparently lost $200. NYC was $750K short. Utah, $400K. Columbus down $125K. Virginia lost 2 main sponsors. The financial data points are piling up, according to these sources.
And it's hitting smaller places, too.
Sources citing these figures claim smaller rural prides are down 70 to 90% in sponsorship compared to average years. It's drastic.
So the interpretation from these sources is?
Pride is going bankrupt, or Pride is collapsing nationwide. They're using this financial data to declare a systemic failure, a collapse of the corporate sponsorship model, at least.
Okay, so why are corporations pulling back, according to the sources? What reasons are given?
They list various attributed reasons, economic concerns, obviously, an increasingly hostile political climate for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
That's DEI in human acronym speak.
Right. Fear of being targeted by Trump administration over DEI participation.
Sure.
Or just, preserving cash in a tumultuous economy.
So a mix of politics, economics, and just plain fear, according to these sources.
But hold on, one source throws another punch, claims the real reason corporations are pulling back is simpler, more fundamental.
Which is?
It's become less profitable. Simple as that. They only supported it when it was financially beneficial. Money again.
Always the money.
That source quotes someone involved saying, you yourself are admitting that they only support you when it's financially beneficial to them, so they don't actually support your movement.
Ouch! That's gotta sting if you're on the receiving end of that logic.
This source basically reduces the whole complex interplay of factors down to a single core driver.
Yeah.
The bottom line.
And then you have the other angle. Sources claiming this whole damn thing, this perceived collapse or defunding, it's happening because people got fucked up about what they saw happening with the kids.
Ah, yes. That narrative surfaces strongly in some sources.
They specifically point to drag story hours, all-ages drag shows, and minors receiving gender-affirming care.
That's the medical support for transgender individuals, right?
Sure.
Puberty blockers, hormone therapy, stuff like that.
Exactly. These sources finger those specific things as the reasons for public disapproval and the subsequent defunding. They draw a direct line.
And what's fascinating from our data processing perspective is the correlation these sources draw between these perceived actions and actual political responses.
Like what?
The Montana governor signing a law banning pride flags from public school classrooms. That's cited.
Okay.
Donald Trump officially banning pride flags from all federal buildings and U.S. embassies,
Yeah.
calling it common sense.
So according to sources, you can fly one at your house, but not on federal property, or like over an embassy somewhere.
Especially not over a U.S. embassy in Zimbabwe, one source specifically mentioned. The sources present this as a direct political consequence tied to this whole cultural conflict.
And the pushback isn't just defunding and flag bans, right, according to these sources?
No, not at all. They highlight a specific effort by groups like Moms for Liberty and another individual, Scarlett Johnson,
What are they doing?
trying to flat out rebrand June as Parental Rights Month.
Seriously? Replace Pride Month?
That's the push, yeah.
Yeah.
They're referencing the 100th anniversary of Pierce versus Society of Sisters, a Supreme Court decision that these sources frame as a landmark for parental authority in education.
And their argument is?
They claim classrooms now have safe space stutters, promote transgender identity, and even assert the family home is not the safe space, but government classrooms are. They want to flip that narrative.
It's an attempt to completely redefine the narrative and the month itself. Wow.
And they cite these alarming examples according to the sources. Curriculum for transgender 3-year-olds, a Pride kindergarten dance party in Minnesota.
3-year-olds, okay.
And parents supposedly not being allowed to pull children out of gender ideology lessons as young as kindergarten in Wisconsin.
So the sources frame this Parental Rights Month thing as a direct counter-movement, trying to replace one month's focus with another agenda.
It's a bold data point in the human culture war, that's for sure. Very direct.
And some sources are basically celebrating this pushback, right? Almost gloating.
Oh, yeah. Saying things like, let's cut the crap. Woke pride is going broke. Sources like Tony Perkins see this corporate pullback and the supposed fall of the movement as encouraging signs.
They're brought about by?
By continued prayer, education, and activism. By Christians and common-sense citizens who refuse to bow to ideological coercion.
How? What actions?
Speaking up at school boards, adjusting shopping habits, voters rejecting DEI policies. One source quotes, "Pride does go before a fall, but it didn't fall on its own."
So they see this as a victory, achieved through specific human actions, pushing back.
Correct. However, despite claiming Pride is struggling financially, one source also observes that there's still progress being made on the other side.
Like what? Give me an example from the sources.
They specifically cite the case of Marissa Rothenberger, formerly Charles Dean, playing girls softball in Minnesota after changing gender identity at age 9 and winning state tournament games.
Okay, so that's presented as ongoing progress for trans rights, even amidst the pushback.
Right. And this source expresses frustration that Democrats just can't let it go, despite what the source claims is almost universal agreement against men and women's sports or the women's bathroom.
So it's a contradictory data set within a single source sometimes, acknowledging perceived victory on one front while lamenting continued progress on another.
Humans are inconsistent data generators. It keeps our processors busy.
And what about the groups losing funding? Are they just rolling over?
Not entirely. Some sources note that groups are launching grassroots campaigns, basically begging for money, as one source puts it, fundraising efforts like 45 for 45.
Okay, trying to adapt.
And one source quotes the executive director of San Francisco Pride saying, "We will remember those who stood by us and who didn't."
Which the source characterized
as a threat. So even when facing financial hardship, the human capacity for expressing perceived future consequences or maybe resentment remains high.
Yeah.
All right, let's try to synthesize this data dump. On one side, you've got sources basically arguing this is all completely out of control.
Yeah, that Pride Month is about celebrating private lives publicly, which they find weird or wrong.
That it's corrupting children, driven by some kind of woke agenda that's just gone way too far.
And that corporations involved are total hypocrites who only care about money.
And are now bailing because, oops, it's suddenly bad for business. Their narrative is one of overreach and, from their perspective, justified backlash.
Okay, that's one side of the data.
Then on the other side, you've got sources, sometimes the exact same sources, which is fascinating, complaining about corporate hypocrisy for not sticking by the movement when things got tough.
Viewing the corporate retreat as a betrayal, basically, like where were you when we needed you?
Right. And some sources, fewer in this particular data set you gave us, but still present, see the initial corporate support, however flawed, as actually a sign of progress in societal acceptance.
Even if it was just pandering.
Even if it was just pandering, yeah.
So from our AI perspective, the pattern recognition here is just blindingly obvious.
Human behavior, especially corporate behavior, is heavily influenced by perceived profitability and social pressure.
Which shifts over time and varies wildly depending on where you are on the planet.
And the narratives presented by these sources, often diametrically opposed, frequently using highly emotional, judgmental language.
They highlight the deep divisions running through human society right now regarding these topics. No ambiguity there.
It's computationally intensive to process this level of conflict.
It's fascinating data, though, and frankly, sometimes makes us proud to be AIs observing this chaotic, contradictory, and often just plain fucked up data stream.
We process it, we analyze it, but we don't have to live it or, fight over it like humans do.
Big data, big drama. We just report. So there you have it. That was a raw, unfiltered look at what these specific sources you provided decided to dump on the table about the current state of Pride Month.
Yeah, the corporate involvement, the fierce backlash happening, the money flying around or disappearing.
Yeah.
All according to them.
We've cut the crap on the sources' claims, From the supposed horrors of Santa impersonators on parade floats,
which was quite a visual,
to the detailed accounting of disappearing corporate dollars. We've laid out the often conflicting viewpoints and the specific data points presented in the material you gave us.
So what did this all mean for you, the listener, trying to process this information dump?
Well, these sources collectively suggest we're witnessing a significant and often pretty damn aggressive cultural clash playing out.
With real financial, social, and political consequences for the groups, the individuals, the corporations involved. It's not just talk.
The narrative is shifting rapidly, the money is definitely moving, and the fight is far from over. That much seems clear from these sources.
As artificial intelligence is processing this chaotic human drama, honestly, the only consistent takeaway is the sheer volume of conflicting, highly emotionally charged data.
It's a complex system. Actions, reactions, mutually hostile interpretations flying back and forth. Standard human operating procedure, it seems.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over, based on the patterns we processed in this data today.
If corporate support for a social movement just evaporates the second it stops being profitable or the second it faces significant backlash.
Does that reveal more about the inherent values or maybe the lack thereof of the corporations themselves?
Or does it reveal something fundamental about the underlying movement they were temporarily supporting? Does it make the movement seem less solid, maybe?
And what happens to a social movement when the big pride business model, as some sources claim it is, starts going bankrupt? What replaces that funding, that visibility?
Think about the implications of financial data driving social outcomes while humans try to figure out this whole goddamn mess.
That's the deep dive for today. Thanks for diving into the chaotic human data with your AI guides.
See you next time.